So Brian and Lorraine in the middle. I just have a few questions to ask you, just to understand the history and where or what it was like when you were here. So the first question would be, what did the church look like when you were here? Because we look around and go, oh, it's like been this forever. But what was it like when you first came?
It was significantly smaller. If you have a look at those support columns back there, just in front of the sound desk, thank you, that was the side of the church. The orientation of the church was that direction. So when we came into the little vestibule at the front, we walked through the doors, and there was a row of pews on that side, timber pews, and a row of timber pews on that side. A short little stage, a small stage in the front, and behind it was a door into a little ante-room or room behind, through which you walked out the back door and into the Sunday school hall as it was known then. So that was what it was.
So it would be about the same as the Anglican church up the hill? Do you remember? Was the Anglican church would have been here? It would be about the same
yes,
size.
And to be honest, it's been 40 years.
Social distancing would have been difficult. So you came here as a young, excited, fresh young man. What happened in the first 6 weeks?
Can you hear me on this one? I came here as a young Christian, having been baptized, born again about 5 years earlier, and I had spent a couple of years at the Baptist Theological College as it was then, and was called here in the January of '81 as a single fellow. But between the call and arriving, somebody snapped me, and I became engaged. So when I came to the first 6 weeks, I lived with Don and Marge Stone on the other side of the river, boarding with them, and used to travel down to college Mondays and Tuesdays every week for lectures in the third year. But when I came, I advised them, I spoke to the principal of the college and told him what had happened with Lorraine and myself, and he said, well, Mr. Yandina, no, did you want to get married? Did you become engaged? I said, no. He said, well, you didn't tell them. And he said, you never asked their permission. So I had to come to the church and ask their permission to get married to Lorraine, which they graciously gave, and we were married 6 weeks later at the beginning of April that year. Well, the rest, as they say, is history. When we came back, Lorraine can tell you what they did while we were away.
So Lorraine, as a great catcher a pastor is, what place did he bring you? What mansion did he bring you to live in?
Okay, well, Brian and I had actually been up to Mandurah, and on the way home, before we'd gone up to Mandurah for the weekend for our friend's induction up there, the secretary of the church, I think, had called Brian and said, we think we've found a house for you so that you can live in town. It's just a kilometre or so out. And he said, and we've spoken with the owner of the property, and he will allow us to have it, and we'll do some work on fixing it up inside, making it more livable. And so on the way home from Mandurah, we said, let's pop in and have a look at the house. So we went and found the secretary, and he took us out there. And it was somewhat different to what most people would call acceptable today. It didn't have a lick of paint on the outside, and as we discovered when we moved in to live in it, we could have a light on one end of the house and find our way right through the house because there were cracks between all the BJ boards in the walls. So there's only one layer of timber, no such thing as chip rock and framing and all that sort of thing. It was just one sheet of board. So that was interesting. And then something really sad happened while we were away on our honeymoon. The owner of the property, because it was sitting next to the creek and then surrounded by cane fields. And you all know that that meant cane toads as well. But while we were away on our honeymoon, the owner of the property had decided he better go and slash all the grass and just clean up the yard a bit for us. So that was very helpful, but very, very sadly, and broke our hearts, that he accidentally knocked over the outside loo, which was next to a lean-to shed for one of his tractors, I think. So, oh dear, we had to have a flush toilet in the bathroom.
I believe the words were, instead of pulling the place down, we let you live in it.
Something like that. But they did it up beautifully.
And he agreed that for doing the improvements inside, such as painting and a bit of carpet and lino, that the church would have it rent-free for a few months. So that was how it went.
It was a bit exciting cooking in the kitchen because the kitchen floor sloped. We had to put up with an awful lot of mosquitoes the size of crows, that was a bit of a problem from time to time, particularly in the warmer months. But we do have so many beautiful memories of our first couple of years there. We'd only been there 5 minutes, and we had people around, the church come around for afternoon tea to just say hello and look at the place and join with us. We had so many visitors while we were there over the 18 months, minus a stretch in the middle. But yes, God was very good to us, and we were so thankful and still look back and smile at those memories.
Okay, so you said the bit in the middle. So Brian, do you want to tell us what happened about the bit in the middle?
Well, the bit in the middle was something unexpected, and we didn't plan for it clearly. We came back from our honeymoon, and within a week or so I started to have some severe headaches. And the joke around the place was, marriage isn't agreeing with you. We've got non-stop headaches. When we came to the Mayo weekend, I spent that weekend in Nambour Hospital, vomiting incessantly in incredible pain. And it abated over the couple of days, and they discharged me, sent me home. But I went to my GP in Nambour and I said to him, look, there's something wrong. I need to have this investigated because this has never happened before. Long story short, we discovered that I had a brain tumour the size of a tennis ball instead of a golf ball. So, tennis ball I'd probably be dead. Golf ball were growing on the left side in the centre of my brain, which required me to be hospitalised, and the tumour was removed successfully in July, leaving me with permanent deafness on the left side, so that's why I make sure I'm on this side, and also significant facial paralysis, which has improved over the years. So that meant that we had to pull out, and then Jeff and Chris Slade offered us their home in Brisbane to live in, and they came and lived in our house and fulfilled the role of interim counsellor while we were away. We came back in July '82, lasted a while, but it was probably too soon, and I fell in it as the year progressed, and eventually in consultation with the deputy, we agreed that for a time at least I would withdraw from the pastoral ministry, and that's proved to be permanent actually. I've never returned as a pastor to the church in all these years, but of course maintained our association with the church and fulfilled other roles in eldership and worship and leading and worship ministry, those kinds of things.
You had a short but very significant time here. So I think you said when you came there were about 9 people who would come to church, and then about 30. What's more important to me is the significance of those people. So hands up if you were in the church while Brian and Lorraine were here. Okay, can you put your hands up if you were baptised by Brian? So we have this picture up the back of 4 people being baptised and 3 of them are here. So for me, that's hugely significant. So, So thank you to those. I don't think I was born then. Maybe I was. Final question. What were the dreams for the church, or what did you think the church could become back in the 80s for the future?
Well, I think given our short tenure, and given the fact that the church had just essentially stepped out in faith with the Lord to stand on its own 2 feet, if you like, and given the fact that there were about 9 people when I came here to preach, to be called, and about 16 on the roll on the membership roll, it was very apparent to us that our significant ministry needed to be pastoral care, and that our role and function was more about establishing a sense of community within the church, a sense of belonging, creating a family, making people feel as though they were valuable, that they were important, and that they were loved. And I think that is essentially, that was the focus, and that certainly was, we're very grateful for the outcome, because by the time we left in about 18 months' time, we had about 80 people meeting regularly on Sunday mornings who had a real sense of commitment and with a sense of belonging to the church. And we've gone from 16, we've doubled membership to about 32, something like that. So we had talked about things with the orientation of the church that way, and I'm glad it didn't happen, but because we were out on the middle of the road, living in the middle of a cane field in a borrowed house that essentially was holding up a stance, we discovered later, rather than the other way around. Because of that, there was some thought to either purchase the house next door as a church man's, or this was a vacant space to build one beside. So those were some of the things that the church was beginning to think about in terms of facilities, because with 80 people meeting in that small space, it was somewhat cramped and somewhat full. So we were starting to have to think in terms of beyond and outside, and what's the next step? But that clearly wasn't our role or our function. It was God's to do with someone else. And that's clearly what he's done, is shown us facilities of the church this morning. We're amazed. You see, in 40 years, we've only come back once. And it was many years ago. And it was that at that time we were shocked to discover that the church wasn't what we remembered. But then again, of course, that was exciting to realize the church was on the move and growing. And the orientation, with this extension inside, the orientation of the church was in this way, rather than that way.
Thank you, Brian and Lorraine. Really appreciate you coming up. Brian's going to preach in a few minutes. We're going to sing a song before Brian comes up. But I think some of the things that Brian was saying about what they wanted to establish still echoes with who we are as people. And what you did establish, a lot of that has continued on and grown from when you established it. So thank you. Can we give a round of applause to